O gracious and loving God, guide us by your light. Amen. Happy New Year, everybody. Wonderful to see you all today. Here at the beginning of this new year and the close of the Christmas season, Epiphany launches us into a bright new time as we celebrate the feast today of the showing forth of Christ, the Feast of the Epiphany. It's also known as Twelfth Night. It always reminds me of that show that I loved as a child, Amal and the Night Visitors, which plays today, it turns out, at the Methodist Church in Westport. While it was written as a television opera back in 1951 for NBC, and it was filmed in Studio 8H at Rockefeller Center, it's still relevant. Perhaps you know the story too, about the journey of the three wise men and a disabled shepherd boy who meets them one night. The boy is named Amal. He can only walk with a crutch, and he's a kid who likes to exaggerate things so he can get people's attention. And naturally, his mother gets exasperated with his tall tales from time to time. It's no wonder then that his mother doesn't believe him when late at night they're home alone, the two of them. They hear a rapping at the door, and the little boy opens it, and he cannot believe that there are three splendidly dressed kings there at the door. His mother doesn't believe him. But the kings are there, and she's just stunned. They want to rest. They're on their way to find a wondrous child and to give gifts to him. The mother invites them in, and even though in her abject poverty all that she can offer is a cold fireplace and a bed of straw, the kings decide to take their rest, and they go to sleep late at night. And the mother, while they're sleeping, thinks to herself, maybe if I steal some of that gold that I see over there, the king's gold that was meant for the Christ child, she could support her poor child who's disabled and can't support her. But the king's page is on the alert and sees what the mother is doing, and he cries out, "Thief, thief!" And Amal jumps up to defend his mother. King Melchior wakes up and steps in and intervenes, says, "Mother, you may keep the gold. Because the Holy Child will not need wealth or earthly power to build his kingdom," he says. And the mother responds, "All my life I have wanted to meet such a king." "So take back the gold, king," she says. She wants to send a gift, but she has nothing to offer. And Amal, too, has nothing to give. But he decides, I will give the Christ child my crutch. So he hands it to the kings to take with them on their journey. And when he offers the crutch to the kings, his leg is miraculously healed. And so when the night visitors depart, Amal asks his mother, "Oh, please, with great excitement, can I join them?" And she says yes, so he goes off with the kings to seek out this Christ child. And when he finally meets the baby, he gives him his crutch in person in thanks for being healed. It's a fictitious story, yet it contains the essence of the gospel we hear from Matthew today. Matthew's gospel says, when the wise men saw the star that had stopped over the place where the Christ child lay, they were overwhelmed with joy. Here before them was the light of light. It was an epiphany to these wise men, and the word epiphany simply means a shining or a showing forth. Divine light emanates from this baby. A question to ask ourselves about this shining forth of divine light: is it the appearance of God, or is it the transparence of God? Because the divine light that shines from this child is not something new. This light emanates all around us from the beginning of time. It is the essence of all being. It's all around us. It's in everything that was ever created by God. In anything that has its being. It's the light at the heart of life. It's the light from which all things come. It's somehow, this light were extracted from the universe. If it ceased to exist, everything else would cease to exist. So Epiphany is a story about the light at the heart of everything, the light at the heart of you, the light at the heart of me. You remember that story about Moses who sees the burning bush on the hillside, and the bush is burning, and it's weird, though. It's not consumed. It doesn't burn up. So strange. The light was always there. The amazing miracle is that Moses noticed it. He paid attention to it. If we pay attention to the light that is within us, that is always there, and the light all around us, we will see this light shining. But usually this doesn't happen because we're blinded by all kinds of hindrances that prevent us from seeing the light. Amal's mother was hindered by her worry, her desperation that she had no money, she had no support, she had no way to raise her child or even feed herself. She didn't know where next day's bread was coming from. She felt that she had no other option, perhaps, than to steal. But we can also be hindered by our wealth just as much as by poverty. With our getting and our spending, we allow ourselves to use our privilege over others instead of serving others with our wealth, with the gifts that we've received. Now, these wise men were unusual people. They weren't really kings. They were astronomers. They're called magi. They listened to their dreams. They watched the night sky. They paid attention and noticed when one star stood out, beckoning them and leading them to find the light of all light. I wonder, what does it mean to follow the star of God as the wise men did? To kneel down in submission and lay before God the gifts that we've been given so that they might be used for God's glory. Our Christian tradition over the millennia has turned these wise men into king figures as a way of raising them up, perhaps, to be the kinds of leaders that we would like to have. And the message is that wise and good leaders do submit to the power of God's grace and light. They submit to the power of God's love. God's grace is described by St. Paul in his letter to the Ephesians as such a humbling thing. Once that grace is experienced, that Paul was willing to be imprisoned for it. He said, "Unto me, the least of all the saints, this grace was given to me." He believed that grace was given to him in order that he could participate in God's mission to tell others about the fullness of the unfathomable blessings of Christ. How do you describe the mystery of what God's grace is? He calls it the unfathomable riches of Christ, this grace, this light, which is a mystery to us because we aren't usually oriented toward God. With our endless distractions and the busyness of our lives, prevents us from seeing the light of Christ, this epiphany glowing for us, for our sake. So what is the key then to unlocking the mystery? Paul says the secret to getting this grace in our lives is to be rooted and grounded in love. It's all about being firmly fixed in love. And when we act on love with one another, then we too will experience the epiphany, which is God's light known to us in the love of Jesus. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe we know the love of Jesus and then we act with love toward one another. So what a joyful celebration Epiphany is in the life of the church, because we are invited to open ourselves up to the revelation that is available to each of us. I want our theme this year at Trinity to be, be still and know that I am God. Because the Epiphany is there waiting for us to see it and to find it. So may God grant us the grace to see the place where the Christ child lies, this light that shines forth from the ground of all being, so that we too can be overwhelmed with joy when we experience it. Amen.